Listen, I can pretty much guarantee that there are no little kids sitting in a circle on some playground somewhere in the world saying that they want to be junkies and drug addicts when they grow up. Just saying. So, in today's video, I'm going to talk about what it really felt like for me to become a junkie. As a college educated person, girl that I was, with a master's degree, at 23 years old, I became a junkie and burned my entire life to the ground. In the following 17 years, I stayed addicted to heroin. I became a criminal. I accumulated a 10 plus page criminal record. I'm a felon. Spent years going in and out of jails, dozens of detoxes, probations, probation violations, ankle bracelets, homelessness, overdoses, countless life threatening infections, almost losing limbs, all because I became addicted. Now, this is not to say that I didn't have any choices, because if you know my story and if you're an OG on this channel, you know that there are no freaking victims here. There are no victims here. I made a lot of bad decisions and I suffered a lot of bad consequences. Don't mind my thumb. I have an infection under my thumbnail that is slowly getting better. So I don't know if I'm gonna take this off because it's gonna annoy me. And it's fine. It's fine. As long as I don't hit it on something, it's fine. But literally my thumbnail is gonna come off. And I know that's so gross. That's so gross. That's so gross. Ew, it gives me the fucking heebie-jeebies and I get goosebumps when I think about it because it's so fucking gross. And considering all the shit that I've been through with the infections and the abscesses and the surgeries and the hospital visits and the hospital stays and the doctor's visits and all the things, you would think that I wouldn't be grossed out as easily as I'm fucking grossed out by this. So let's get into it. So because I don't want this video to be 5 million hours long, the beginning of the story is I had a great childhood. I had loving parents. My parents divorced when I was 11, which, looking back on it now, I was so ignorant about like how it went down that I've only just recently kind of come to the realization of some things. And neither one of my parents are alive. Neither one of them got to see me in recovery. They both died 3 months apart at the end of 2019. Literally, right. My dad died in September 2019. The last day I used dope was November 2019. And then my mom died in December 2019. And I also want to say, too, that most of these insights that I have about my story and about me becoming a junkie and spending a lifetime in active heroin addiction, a lot of these things didn't come to light until after the fact. You know, hindsight is 2020. I didn't know why I was doing these things. I didn't know why I wanted to even try heroin. Because listen, I had been sober from coke and booze. I had a couple of surgeries within 6 months of each other. I was prescribed perks. I was given Dilaudid. I loved the feeling, but I still never put it together in my head that, you know, those meds were opiates, literally the same as heroin. Like, for some reason, it just didn't click in my brain. But I had already been sober from coke, so it wasn't like I wasn't into drugs at all, or that scene at all. So the first time that I used heroin was 2003. It was my 24th birthday. I had already been dabbling in Oxycontin and OCs. I was sniffing those. And I should also say that, you know, in Boston, opiate addiction and heroin addiction is literally an epidemic and has been for a long freaking time. It was like almost normal to be a junkie in Boston, and none of it scared me. It really didn't scare me at all. I tried it mainly out of curiosity and what I now know about the girl that I was. Like, I had no purpose. I had nothing in my life at the time that I felt passionate about. I had nothing in my life when I was 23 that I was doing because I wanted to be doing it. Everything that I was doing, down to my job, down to my degree, down to all of it, I was doing because I thought that's what was expected of me. I was just going through the motions. There was nothing I was doing in my life that I genuinely wanted to be doing. So I truly believe, now that I know, and looking back and overanalyzing my life a million fucking times, I truly believe that my lack of purpose was the reason why I was trying these things. The first time I did heroin, it gave me that feeling, that relief, that solution that I didn't even know I had been searching for. Most of us are searching for a solution and searching for relief, and we don't even know. We have zero idea until we find something that gives us the relief. It's not even really about the drug, and it's not really about the high. It's about the feeling and the solution and the relief that it provides. And then eventually it stops working. But usually by the time it stops working, we're a little too deep into it to just stop and walk away from it. And when it came to my parents, to this day, I don't know the extent of what they knew. Like, because they're not here and because I can't ask them, I really don't know if they know everything I was up to. Even though my dad he was a fucking saint. He knew I was getting arrested. He would pick me up and bail me out. He bailed me out of jail a couple times. He drove me to a couple detoxes. He'd pick me up from the police station. He would bring me to pick up my car from the tow yard because it would always get towed when I'd get arrested. He would come to all my court dates. Like, he knew what was happening, but it was never talked about. It was literally never talked about. And because of that, it gave me that ability to keep that area of my life, which was my entire life, really, separate. I wonder, and I'm not saying I don't have any regrets and I wouldn't change any of it because it's truly made me the person I am today. But I wonder if they had been more informed, if they had been more verbal, if it would have been talked about more, then it would have been that much harder for me to escape and to create that life that seemingly was separate, right? It would have been that much more difficult for me to lead such a drastically different kind of double life that I had going on for so long. I don't know, because it's not like I didn't know that I knew what I needed to do. I knew what I needed to do. I had been sober. I had a bunch of friends that were junkies in recovery. Like, I knew what I needed to do. I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I didn't want to go through the sickness because in my brain, I truly thought that the sickness was going to last forever because my habits were so big. I would go out, I would be on runs for literal years at a time. I mean, most people I would meet in detox and they'd be like, oh, I was out for 6 months. And a 6 month run is a long time on the streets, like for a dope fiend, right? Because your tolerance goes up, it becomes expensive, and then you go to detox and it's a hell of a sickness. But people hearing in detox that I would be out for multiple years, like I'd be like, oh, 8 years, 10 years, 3 years, nobody would believe me. Because not only did it seem impossible, because how can you hustle and come up with money for that long a period of time? Right? How can you, how is that even possible? I don't know. I can't even answer that question. I really can't answer that question. I became a master manipulator. I was a freaking con artist to a T. Like, I fooled my probation officers. I fooled doctors. I tucked clean urines. I manipulated my drug tests. I got high in halfway houses, in treatment programs. I would figure out a way to meet my dude, get high in programs, in inpatient programs. I would have people dropping me off and throwing dope over a fence, landing in a yard. I would go pick it up. I would get high in the bathroom. Literally, I became a master at being a junkie. And it only hurt me at the end of the day. Even though I thought I was getting away with something, I thought, oh my God, I'm getting high, I'm getting away with it. Like, I thinking in my brain that it was preventing me from having to do the work, and like I wanted to be getting high anyways. But in reality, it was really only hurting me because I was only prolonging the inevitable, because you can't change your life without going through the sickness at some point. And I just literally trained myself to believe that I could stay getting high forever. Like, if there was a will, I would always find a way. Even when nobody else would see a way, I would find a way. It was wild. I even smuggled dope into jail with me. Like, bro, my fear of getting sick kept me so much sicker. I thought I could find a loophole, I thought I could find a way around literally everything. I mean, this was back when like cameras and surveillance wasn't really that big. I don't even know how any junkie can survive in this day and age with all the surveillance and the cameras and the security and the AI. Like I back in my day, I mean, I swear I was one of the reasons why Circuit City went out of business. I swear I was. Like I had no fear. Walking in and like walking out with a freaking screen big screen TV. I mean, stealing whole carriagefuls of tools from Home Depot and just walking out of the emergency exit. Like, bro, I had no fear. And because I was willing to pretty much do anything and break any law there was to get what I needed to get, I pretty much convinced myself that there was a shortcut to everything, which at the end of the day only hurt me, really, because I wasn't getting away with anything. But unfortunately, after years of facing all of the consequences and not really caring about any of it and not really even trying to get my shit together after any of it, it took losing absolutely everything, including both of my parents, for me to finally hit that clarity that I needed to get my shit together. You know, I really wish I could apologize to my parents, but I can't. I wish it had hit me years ago that I wasn't only hurting myself. Like my body was a straight up pincushion. I've had dozens of life-threatening infections. I didn't care at all about hurting myself. I thought I was the only person that I was hurting, and I was okay with that. Looking back, I really had no idea the scope of what I was putting my parents through. Because, you know, after several years of getting high, I just straight up stopped talking to my mom. Like, my mom and I were always so incredibly close, so incredibly close. We did everything together. But my addiction, the shame and the guilt, and me not wanting to face her, not wanting to lie to her anymore, because I couldn't. I really couldn't. My answer to that was just to stop talking to her. And we lost touch. My dad, I continued to talk to on a daily fucking basis, every single day. Him and my dope dealer were the only two people I talked to for a long time. Sometimes I would nod out on my toilet and I would be next to the radiator. A lot of times I would wake up with second-degree burns on my back. I have scars. I have deep scars on my back because I would wake up with second-degree burns from the hot radiator, from nodding out on the radiator. And I'd be upside down over doing a back bend on my toilet with my head lodged between the toilet and the wall. And it would take me so long just to get up from that because half my body would be asleep from being like in such a weird position. And I would literally have to think myself out of it. Like it was like the weirdest thing. And that would be considered a good nod. Looking back on my own experiences and how it developed in my own life, it is wild to me how quickly it progressed. It is wild to me how quickly I became a junkie. Like I dove head first into the junkie lifestyle. Because listen, it's not the drug that I was chasing. It's not the drug that we chase as addicts. It's that feeling. It's the relief and the solution it provides for us. So for me, it happened fast. Like I knew exactly what I was doing. And I know I've said this before, but it's like I was dedicated. The dedication I had to my junkie lifestyle was wild. And from my healing and doing all the shadow work and all the things that I've done to heal myself now that I'm almost 6 years into recovery, which is wild. Because the longest clean time I had throughout 17 years was 11 days. I mean, besides some jail time here and there, but I never did like serious bids. But 11 days was the longest time I could ever put together on my own. Within the first 6 months, I mean, everything became secondary. Everything. Where once I was very dependable, reliable. I mean, I was late all the time. I was that annoying person that was always late to things. But once I became a junkie, or once I like committed, once I started prioritizing that and that became a priority, everything else fell away. I was late all the time. I was falling asleep in meetings So much so that my boss, I remember, called me into the office one day and gave me a pamphlet for the EAP, which is the Employee Assistance Program. And it was like in that moment, I knew, like, oh shit, they know. They know. How could they not know? They were all sober, right? They were all in recovery. We were like, it was an addiction recovery program. How could they not know? I thought I was fooling everybody. And that's another thing too. Like, we know what we're doing, but we're so stupid and ignorant to the fact that we're not hiding anything. Like I was mainly, I think, just trying to hide it from myself and trying to fool myself. But my solution to being found out at my job, because I just foresaw myself getting fired and I didn't want to get fired, was I quit. I quit that job, and I was like, I'll just find another job that doesn't have anything to do with addiction recovery, because that'll be fine. The problem was that people knew and people were in recovery. That was the problem. It had nothing to do with the fact that I was a junkie. I started trading my electronics, my TVs. I remember the first time I traded my TV to my dope dealer for a bag of dope, a half a gram. I hid in my bedroom. I hid in my bedroom while the dude carried it out of my apartment, because I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. I started pawning my stuff, all my stuff, whatever I could find, whatever was worth anything, my electronics, my jewelry, everything. I had nothing left. Within the first year, I had pretty much pawned everything. But I went through all of my money. I had gotten like 10 grand, which had been saved for me until I was 21, until I graduated from grad school. My grandfather left it to me when he died, and I was like 10. So I remember when I graduated from grad school, my dad gave me the 10 grand. I had that in the bank. That was gone within the first year. I was essentially homeless within the first year and a half. Quit my job and then lost another job because I had found another job working with adolescents, but I was too junked out to even follow through on anything. I was literally always late to work. I would disappear on my lunch breaks to meet my dude. If my dude said 15 minutes and I'd be waiting 2 hours on my half an hour lunch break, oh well, I just walked in 2 hours late with some stupid excuse as to why I was late or why I missed the meeting or why I couldn't be there. I lived 5 minutes away from that job. My teeth started falling out. I remember I was sitting at my desk one day and I was chewing gum or something, and one of my back molars fell out. I stopped taking care of myself. I stopped showering. I remember the apartment where I started using dope in, my bathroom drain, and this would happen all the time because I have a lot of hair, and so the drain in the bathtub would clog in a lot of my apartments, and I was too lazy to clean it out. So I would just let it accumulate and I would just stop using it. I stopped showering altogether, and I didn't want to call the landlord because I didn't want anybody coming into my filthy, junky, paraphernalia ridden apartment. So I just lived like that. I started stealing from my brother. I stole a crap ton of money in checks from my brother within the first year. And then he found out, and then I stopped getting invited home for the holidays. This was all within the first year and a half of my addiction. I was 25. And mind you, I stayed addicted for another 16 years after that. From the age of 23 to 40, I was addicted every single day. The relentless chase. And it was within that time, I think I went to my first detox, which was covered by insurance, which is, I think, the only detox I ever paid for. I mean, insurance paid for it, right? But it was the only, I guess, nice. I don't know. I never paid. I've been to dozens and dozens of detoxes. I mean, dozens, like revolving door. Every single state-run free bed detox in the Boston area, I've been to more than once. Also, during that time, I should mention, there was a little intervention that happened. I had a group of girlfriends that I grew up with, and when they found out that I was using such hard substances. Now, mind you, I was using coke with some of them, but once I started using dope, that was like a big no-no. And they showed up at my apartment unannounced one day and did a little intervention on me. But I was still working and I still had things, and I thought had it under control. So of course I said, no, I'm not going to treatment. What are you talking about? I still have my life together. Everything's fine. And as a result, they all stopped talking to me and they walked completely out of my life. My parents showed up. They told my friends from that intervention, called my parents and told them exactly what was happening. My parents showed up unannounced at my apartment. Of course I lied and said nothing, everything was fine. Everything was fine. I wasn't ever going to do it again. Everything was fine. No need to worry. I had it under control. So they knew. exactly like what was happening, but it was never really talked about amongst me and my parents. I remember I gave my mom a copy of my AA Big Book, and I was like, "Here, read this," because like they didn't really know, right? I mean, they did their best. So it was relatively easy for me to live this drastically different double life dynamic where everything was fine on one end, and then on the other end, I was a criminal. I was breaking the law. I started getting arrested within 2 years of my addiction. It was no big deal for me when I started getting arrested because I had, in my own brain, kind of given up and succumbed to the junkie lifestyle. And now that I know this, looking back, because back then I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know the reason as to why I was doing any of it. I truly didn't know. I was just following what my body was telling me to do. And at the time, my body was telling me that the most important thing was heroin. And the only thing that mattered was heroin. I had to do anything and everything that I could do in order to not get sick and continue getting high. That's what my brain and that's what my body was telling me. And this is where the tolerance and dependence comes into play. And I remember the first time I got dope sick, I was at that job that I quit before I got fired from. And I was sitting in my friend's office, and I was sitting in one of those office chairs, you know, the swingy kind. And my legs, I'm short, I'm only 5'2". So my legs were like barely hitting the floor because it was high up. And so I was kind of like swinging my legs because I realized that my legs were so fucking restless. My legs ached. I felt like I needed to get up, walk around a million miles. I felt like there was so much pent up energy in my legs that needed to be released. It was achy, it was tight, it was the worst restless legs feeling. And at the time, I didn't really know that it was dope sickness, but I remember it. I remember that was the first time, because sure as shit, guess what made me feel better? I became dependent pretty quickly. And depending on how much you use, this varies. It could be anywhere from 3 weeks to a few months. But tolerance, on the other hand, tolerance is a bitch. Because the more tolerant you get, the more money you have to come up with, the more money you spend, the bigger your habit. And my tolerance was always so freaking high. I would just go into detox to get my tolerance down a little bit so that I didn't have to spend as much money. Because the higher your tolerance, the more you have to use to get the same exact feeling, to get the same exact result, to get the same exact relief. At the end, for me, I was using 3 grams of dope every single day. I had to come up with that money every single day just to feel normal. I mean, there was no getting high anymore. And that's the thing, too, about becoming a junkie is really that high does not last at all. It's literally just a chase. I only got high for a few months, and then it just became about chasing that same relief that I first got, which is impossible to do. But it becomes about survival. Like, there was a study done with rats who were given substances, and the addiction that developed hit the same exact brain functions as drinking water, as hunger, as eating food. So literally, not only do our bodies become dependent on these substances, our brains become dependent. So addiction literally feels like life or death. It feels like survival. If you don't get this substance, you're going to die. That's what it feels like. And this is why it was so easy for me to break the law, to do whatever I needed to do in order to get what I needed. So many people are like, oh, you know, once a junkie, always a junkie. And when you're involved in something that you know people look down on and is so stigmatized, it's a very isolating feeling. Because I always got high by myself. I had a boyfriend, a relationship that I was involved in, but it really wasn't a relationship. It was just like my running partner, right? We did everything together. We got high together. We got arrested together. We went to detox together. But that's it. Like literally the only people I talked to on a daily basis was my dad and my dope dealer. Literally that's it. So that on the getting high on top of the stigma, and you know, you're not stupid to, you know, what the world thinks of junkies. It's a very isolating feeling. So the shame and the guilt starts to pile up because not only was I doing shitty things, not only was I being a scumbag and I was lying and I was manipulating and I was stealing and I was being a criminal and I was doing all these things that I literally said I would never do. But it's always justified. It was always justified because in my brain, it was life or death. In my brain, I needed it to survive. Now that I've healed and I'm in recovery and I'm doing the work and I've done the work, I know that I had a choice the whole time. I had a choice the whole frickin' time. I just chose to keep doing the same thing. I didn't know at the time that I had a choice. I would have bet my life that I didn't have a choice. It felt like I never had a choice. It truly feels like you don't have a choice. And so a lot of these moments of clarity don't come until after the fact. Like, of course, now looking back, hindsight is 2020, and it's like, bro, I could have chosen to go to treatment. I could have chosen to stay in detox. I could have chosen to not, go boosting. I could have chosen to not take the checks. I could have chosen to not do those things, but that would have meant getting sick. Because let me tell you, bro, that dope sickness is no joke. And getting dope sick felt like it was never going to get better. Because my habits were always so big. Going to detox, they never had enough meds to make me feel okay. Going to detox for me always meant literally not getting an ounce or wink of sleep, being up all night staring at the ceiling, all the while still being dope sick, because there was never enough, whatever the meds they give you, there was never enough methadone, there was never enough ibuprofen, there was never enough, what was that other med called? Come to find out, I had an allergic reaction to it and I had to be sent to the hospital. Began with a B. Bentyl? I don't know. There was never enough clonidine. There was never enough of any of the meds at any detox that would ever make me feel okay to stay. I was always so still incredibly dope sick, going in and out of the shower all night long, trying to ease my freaking muscles from tensing up so that I could relax without being a freaking hot tamale in my bed all night. Oh, it was so miserable. And that's why I started detoxing myself. People who don't understand can be very quick to say things like, oh, you're leaving detox, or you're using it as a revolving door, and looking down on that as if we don't take ourselves seriously. When, yes, of course, I wanted to walk away from that junkie life. Of course, I was so incredibly miserable. But when the solution doesn't seem to help any, the solutions that I had were go to detox, go to treatment, and those solutions didn't help me. I mean, I tried them, right? But I was still so dope sick, and I would leave. I literally only finished one detox ever, completed one detox. And that was only because it was an hour from Boston and I couldn't get home. But again, it's a survival thing. When your body is screaming and your brain is screaming and you know what's going to make you feel better, what are you going to do? And this is why I detoxed myself a ton of times. And eventually I just stopped kind of going to detox altogether, because I was like, what's the point? The last couple years of my addiction, I didn't get arrested because I managed to stay under the radar somehow. But really, most of the times I went to treatment, it was because I was court ordered. And all the times I would go to probations and give, pee in cups and urine screens, I manipulated my way through all of it. I would tuck clean urine and I would find a way to give clean urines. I would spend hours going to Staples and cutting and pasting the paperwork to make it look like my urines were coming back clean. I've been on several Suboxone clinics and methadone clinics, and I always manipulated the paperwork to make it look like I was doing great. People say to me, 17 years is a long time. No shit, bro. It's a lifetime. It's a teenage child. It's a lifetime. This is why it's so hard to walk away and to get clean and to be in recovery, or to start recovery, or to even just take that first step after being in addiction for so long. Because it becomes your normal. My addiction became my normal. I no longer was that girl with the college education. I became this junkie criminal with a 10+ page criminal record. I became a felon. I became that stereotype. And I was okay with that. I kind of gave up. But again, it was so isolating to the point where I didn't, I occasionally I would go to meetings here and there, but I stopped going to meetings pretty much entirely because I didn't want to have that conversation. I was the person who would show up at meetings and people would be like, "Oh, you know, everybody would know I was still getting high." And it was like, "Oh, how are you?" Giving like a fake, "Oh, everything's good, on probation," and all the things. And it's like, I just stopped. I kind of gave up. I gave up and I succumbed to my junkie life. That's exactly what happened. And I was okay with that, which is sad because the guilt and the shame that kept compounding as the years would go by, dope became the answer to everything. I would argue that literally nobody who does a substance like heroin is ever healthy in the brain, right? There's really no, it's not a social drug. It's not something you go out to a party and you might try it at a party around people, but it's definitely not something you do with people. Like, it's just not a social drug to do. So I would argue, just the mere fact that I was doing heroin and then using needles, the girl that I was with the college education and living a normal life, I was never normal because that girl tried heroin. That girl started using needles. That girl was broken in some way, shape, or form. And in order for me to heal, I had to figure out why. I had to figure out what was broken. And after doing a bunch of shadow work and trying to uncover my demons, coming from a great family, I really think one of the main reasons why I became a junkie was because I had zero purpose in my life. I didn't want to be doing any of the things I was doing. Like I said, I was just going through the motions. I was never told or given any kind of encouragement that I could do anything that I wanted. I remember trying to think of what I was going to major in when I was going to college. And it was all like, what's going to make me the most money? It was never, what do I really want to do? So me not really having any purpose, when I tried dope, that gave me purpose. It was the reason I got out of bed every morning. It was the reason I left my house. It was the reason I kept going, was to feel that relief or to chase that feeling. Being a junkie gave me some sick, twisted thing of purpose in life. Because, most people say, "Oh, what kind of childhood trauma do you have?" Or you must have a traumatic childhood in order, you were a junkie for 17 years. Like, how did that happen? And for the first couple years of my recovery, I really thought that something happened that I just didn't remember. I was like, well, everybody says that I probably have a traumatic childhood. Like, does something happen that I don't remember? And I was even hearing that from people around me, like when I was junked out, like they'd be like, "Ange, something must have happened when you were growing up," because I was as bad as it got. Like, when it came to being a junkie, bro, like I was pretty bad. Like, it's possible for some of us to just become junkies. And I'm not saying that it's possible for healthy people, normal people. There's got to be a screw loose. There's got to be something broken. There's got to be a void. There's got to be something. And I'm not saying you have to overanalyze your life to the point where it's exhausting and you're like, "Oh, I got to figure it out. I got to figure it out." I stopped getting high. The solution stopped working for me years and years before I stopped getting high. So it feels genuinely like the endless rat race. It feels like like you're on a hamster wheel. You're on a fucking hamster wheel. And I was so freaking miserable. And I genuinely only thought I was hurting myself. Now I know otherwise. Now I wish I could tell my parents I'm sorry. Now I feel awful and I have a lot of guilt and shame around what they must have gone through. Again, I can't talk to them, face to face, because now I know and I take accountability. Today I try to live a life that they'd both be proud of. I don't blame anybody or anyone or anything for what happened, for the life that unfolded for 17 straight years. I made those choices. I made bad decisions and I suffered all the consequences. So I say all of this to say, nobody plans on becoming a junkie when they grow up. Nobody aspires to be a drug addict or to become addicted to any substance. It is a miserable existence, one that I wanted to end completely many, many times. Because eventually you're going to run out of excuses. Eventually, I ran out of excuses. I lost both of my parents within a 3-month period of time. I lost absolutely everything I've ever had in my entire fucking life in a really ugly probate case. And yes, you know, the consequences sucked. I suffered so many consequences. So many consequences, and none of it scared me. None of it made me second guess getting the next bag. My life revolved around dope, around my habit, around my dealers, around my hustle. Being in an addiction is like being in a constant dissociative state. It's like I knew exactly what I was doing, but I was doing it all without my own permission. I knew what I was doing, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. It's not that I was choosing dope over other things. It's just that dope became so much more important. The most important became the only thing that mattered. Life or death, survival. So I share my story and I talk about these things because yeah, you know what? I had to spend 17 straight years in that utter misery, in that junkie life. And there is a life. There is a whole ass life waiting for you after addiction. So trust me, if I can come back from all of the things that I have done and sit here telling you that I literally never think about using, I have zero cravings, I have managed to change my mindset, to change my thinking, and to retrain my brain in ways that addiction had fucked me up for so long. I can sit here telling you that if I can do it, then I'm pretty sure you can too. So I've blabbed on long enough. I think that's all I have to say. Ow! Oh, there goes my thumb. Motherfucker. I think I've blabbed on long enough for today. So with that, I think that's all I have to say. I love you so much. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.